I have this
Okay.
mantra now, which I wake up in the morning with, and I kind of say, today's going to be a good day. Even if it all goes halfway through, at least I start off in a positive note. My journey has been very much falling into things and going, oh, yeah, okay, I could do that. And it was something I'd never before done in my life. I ended up doing an hour routine, stand up routine in Tokyo, in a club for mainly expats. I got paid a lot of money to do it. I didn't know I could have just done 15 minutes. And this is part of this jumping into life thing.
Everything you have experienced, the way you see life, it wasn't like a straight line. It wasn't decided. It wasn't like, I'm going to do this and this and this.
Having achieved something, done something in life, and gone through it and started it and finished it and achieved it gives you the sense of strength and confidence to be able to do something that you've never done before again.
It makes sense on so many levels. First of all, on a very plain psychological, you're kind of teaching your nervous system that you can do hard things, survive them, and move forward.
So success to me is not something I sit there and go, I'm successful. Because that, again, to me still sounds a bit arrogant. I'm successful. Because it also means, if I say that to somebody, I can say it to myself. But if I say that to you or anybody who's watching this, they might easily think, God, he's arrogant, isn't he? He's successful. Let me see his CV. I've never heard of any of the stuff he's been in. He doesn't seem very successful to me. But I'm not talking about how you hear it. I'm talking about how I feel it. And then in my experience of life is that if you feel it, so do other people.
Hello and welcome back, Daniel, to Ambitiously Intelligent.
Thank you very much for having me back.
How are you this morning?
Yeah, I'm very, very good. But I say very, very good. That's a lot of veries. I'm good. I have this mantra now, which I wake up in the morning with, and I kind of say, today's going to be a good day. And there's going to be nothing I can't handle, and something really good is going to happen. So even if it all goes halfway through, at least I start off in a positive note.
So interesting you say that. Valeria and I had just the same talk this morning before we started. And she was like, how are you? And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. And then I'm like, oh, Ava, you're good. Everything's okay. You're allowed to say you're good.
You're allowed to say good. I don't, see, we'll jump straight in really, because I think that we in the universe, definitely in Britain, where I'm speaking from now, don't allow ourselves to say we're good at anything, something's going well. In England, they'll say, how are you? And you'll say, not bad. I mean, not bad, or not too bad. Not too bad. What is that's we can't even allow ourselves to say I'm pretty good today, thank you very much, because everyone thinks you're this arrogant person, it's not a case of blowing your own trumpet. You're not even allowed to have a trumpet. We've been brought up for from the year. I'm over 60 now, and so my parents were product of just post Second World War, and in Britain and in the West definitely, people were brought up to in Britain particularly the black and white era where women stayed at home and cooked and looked after the kids and the house, and men went out in their suit every day, with their hat, and came home, put the bag down, hi honey, I'm home. And it was all so rigid, and in Britain it was this stiff upper lip, post Victorian era. You can't don't possibly say you're good at, don't talk about money, don't say you're good at anything, be seen and not heard. And I think we've done tremendously well over the past few-ish years to be able to break free from that and feel not feel self-conscious about it. Anywho, sorry. Good morning.
No, that
Good
was
morning.
a beautiful beginning. Thank you. I'm going to introduce you, Daniel, reintroduce you to our audience. You're an actor, director, coach, and also co-owner of the Actors Coaching International Acting School.
It's fun, yeah. Yeah, I would go the other way around from that actually. But yes, I
Okay.
think the
Do
actor at the
tell.
end nowadays, it's kind of changed a lot. But so I would say
Mm.
I'm a coach primarily, a
Mm-hmm.
life and acting coach. So I mainly life coach actors and writers and people in the entertainment industry, but also other people. And I coach actors to work out what they want in life and to get there. And I coach them on audition prep, and also when they get a role, I'll coach them. If they'll send me all their episodes of their TV series, and I'll go through them all with them and prep them for that. So that's my primary thing, and teaching is bolted onto that. And
Mm-hmm.
as part of the teaching, I also run Actors Coaching International with Danny Steele, and also known as Daddy Clifton. And so I work, I do that with him, and then after that I do acting. I do still do acting from time to time. I just had an audition the other day, and I also will direct, but I don't promote myself as a director. So I'm not correcting you. I'm just, I guess I'm correcting.
No, no, no.
We
Terrible,
love this.
terrible.
No, we
Invited.
love this. This
Has
is beautiful.
I'm
you have a
invited here, and
tremendous
I
career.
correct you.
No,
Yeah,
no, no. Yeah, it
yeah.
spans over 30 years, but it all began with acting, I think. And you shared with us that your path wasn't a straight one, that
It was
you
not.
first settled into a corporate career, and then at 29-year-old, you packed your life and moved to, out of all places, Japan. Tell us,
Yeah,
how did that came about?
yeah, that was yeah. You know, it's interesting because I have a 15-year-old. He's 15 tomorrow or something. A 15-year-old son, and he's shouting at me, "I don't know what I want to do in life, Dad. I don't know." And don't worry, nor did I, and
Nobody
nor do
knows.
I, nor do I. No,
I
but
didn't
lots of
know.
people do. Lots of people have this determined. There was
Mm.
a guy at university when I was there who had this. He knew exactly what he wanted to do, and he did it. And lots of people know what they want to do and then don't do it. So, my journey has been very much falling into things and going, oh yeah, okay, I could do that. But I also, as the story goes on, and you've got to be able to back it up with some spirit about yourself, some confidence, which comes from building various successes as you go. But it comes from backing up the hyperbole, backing up the bravado, backing up the, yeah, I can do that. Because if you go in and
Mm.
do it and then fail at the first hurdle,
Mm.
then that will uh, ruin your confidence, maybe, or maybe not, but it would ruin my confidence. So I've got to be able to go into big areas where I think, well, why not? And I have that as kind of in a way a mantra, which I've just thought about now, is why not? So my journey, sorry, I'm rambling. I've had half a cup of tea, so caffeinated. My journey was I was fell into doing all my different exams, fell into the degree I did, which was an honours degree in business at Middlesex University and then in Polytechnic in those days. And then I fell into working for this big multinational called Olivetti, and I
Mm-hmm.
fell into the part of Olivetti that suited me. And over the course of 7 years, through my uh, personality, I guess, force of personality, I guess, and through my interest in life, I ended up being promoted up through the ranks until after being there 7 years, I was head of one of their divisions. So I had people who were working with me, and I had different departments within the division, and we were responsible for selling all printers and copies and faxes for the whole of the UK and for this big multinational. And in the days when those things were useful pieces of office equipment, and got to 29 years old and had lunch with a couple of friends of mine, thinking, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I didn't, I'm not going to learn enough over the next 5 years to warrant staying where I am. And I had a girlfriend who went back to New Zealand, and I started writing a book and wrote a page, and I joined a squash club and didn't play. And it was just one of those things about being one of life's talkers. and I've been done a lot of this, and I know a lot of people who do that. So I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I want to be something, and then they don't do anything about it, and I could feel myself falling into that trap. This is not how I thought of it then. It's just how I'm actually thinking about it now, to be honest. And they said, "Why don't you go traveling?" So, very long story short, I went traveling. And after 6 months, I ended up meeting somebody who said, I didn't know where to go next, said, "Why don't you go to Tokyo to live? You could teach English, you could become a model." Model me. I mean, I joke around about, being young and good looking, but I know I'm not, definitely not typical model, especially in those days. I would think a model is, 6 foot runway, sort of, knowing how to walk and doing all that stuff.
Sorry, I have to say this. Now we need a picture, please.
Okay, a picture of that in those
modeling
days. Oh, okay. Well, I ended up. It didn't end up doing that because it all morphed, and this is, I think, is probably the point of the story in a way, and this is where I could probably be inspiration is a very big grand word, but influence on other people is that what happened was I was advised to go on a certain route, which I did, and I'll come back to what happened when we were in Tokyo, and then when I was in Tokyo, and then what happened was when I was on the pitch, I was able to play in a different area. So things, because I had been somewhere, Nietzsche, a German philosopher, said, "Out of chaos comes order." And so out of this sort of chaos came new things, new experiences, which coalesced into a life that is now still, in a way, I can backtrack through the whole time for 30 whatever years ago it was, 32, 33 years ago. I can backtrack all of the different elements, and it wasn't a linear straight line. It was a series of zigzags and other things, but the line was always connected. And the connection is not a series. It was not a series of dotted. It wasn't a dotted line. It was a solid line. And I think that there's probably a fear that people might have, is that the lines get disconnected, and then they're sort of floating around in free space, and then they have to find the line again. And I remember I've been many places in the world, and I went to a particular place, a lot of places when I was traveling in Southeast Asia and in Spain as well, actually, where you would meet people along the way who their line had disconnected, that they had gone to, say, Thailand, and they'd stopped, and they had given up and left behind the entire life, which is fair enough, because who knows what their life is like to leave behind. They'd left it behind, but they stopped, and while they stopped, the thickness of the line that they had that was going to take them onwards started to dissolve. And over time, they became, the way I used to see it was people, everyone's got an elastic band that's tied to something. And, you go out and then it comes back, whether that grounding is a place or it's your personality or whatever it is. I always thought that these people's elastic bands had broken and that they were spending a lot of time not knowing and this is where, in a way, sometimes where drugs come in, because drugs very often fill that space where you're not going forward with something generally, not very, very generally. And I think that so for me anyway, my line was not linear, but it was still connected. And again, I've never thought of this before.
But Daniel, what if, I mean, what I'm thinking here is, what if the line isn't broken? What if that period is a part of the path and it is necessary?
Okay, that's right. So I agree. I agree with that. So what I'm saying is, me looking back in hindsight. At the time, I didn't know any of that, because what I've done for myself is I've jumped in. And as we talk through, maybe some of my stories will come up. But I kind of just said, yeah, I can do that. and it was something I'd never before done in my life. I still had a period of time, whether it was 9 months in Tokyo before I became a stand-up comedian and a theatre director and teaching drama. That 9 months wasn't inactive. I was doing stuff, but it wasn't progressive in a way. It was progressive, but it wasn't, I'm going to go and do something. It wasn't.
It wasn't deliberate. It wasn't like, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to go there and I'm going to this. You were
Yeah.
open to the
And,
flow of it.
and it was like
And how did
coalescing. Sorry, it
that?
was like coalescing. What it does is something drops and then it hardens, toughens, and becomes something that the next thing can rest on top of, which again, becomes something. And then before you know it, you've got like this big snowman that started with a snowball on the floor. You've got this thing
Well,
that
Would
you.
you call it artistic intuition? Because you saying that you wasn't like strategically planning every move, but though you were planning, maybe not to the T, but still there was a lot of planning, I guess, even to arrange the
There
traveling and
wasn't.
everything.
There wasn't. I planned. Okay, I'll go back to the story. I was in an island off Lombok in Indonesia, and I met a Californian woman who was traveling with her mum and dad, and she said she lived in Tokyo, and because I was asking, I don't know where to go next, and she said, "Well, come to Tokyo," and she told me about these different things like a model, a teacher. Here's a place to live, etc. So I moved there, very friendly with her. She helped me get a job in a cafe as a busboy, and I'd always been an executive, but I was cleaning tables and stuff in this very posh restaurant, and it was great experience. I learned a lot about a lot, and I got a job as a teacher with a visa at an English language school, which was great because there was a staff room there. There was loads of other foreigners from all around the world, and it was just great. And then after 9 months, cutting a very long story short, after 9 months or shorter, I didn't know what I wanted to do next. Actually, which part came first? No, I went they were opening there was somebody opening a new members club in the center of Tokyo, a very expensive place, and there was an American manager, and my friend knew him, and we went to see him. And because I'd had a couple of big parties before I left England in one of the summers of love, I'd had a big party which I organised some bits around, and I went there, and the guy said, "We want a jazz band," and she was a jazz singer, not a problem. Said, "What we really want is a stand-up comedian. Do you know any?" And she said, "Yeah, him." I said, "Yeah, I do that." And I'd never done anything like that in my life. I've been on
Why did she say him?
because
Why would
because
she? Did she?
have you noticed my personality?
We do. Yes, we
Exactly.
have.
So she knew my
So she was
personality.
like, he is a comedian. He doesn't stop. You can count on him.
Yes, wind him up, give him the right thing to say, and push him onto stage. So I said, "Yeah, I do that." And this is part of this jumping into life thing, is that I didn't know what I was supposed to know and not know. Like Donald Rumsfeld, the ex-American politician, used to say, "There's knowns, unknowns, known unknowns." All those. I ended up doing an hour stand-up routine in Tokyo, in a club for mainly expats. I got paid a lot of money to do it. I didn't know I could have just done 15 minutes. So I wrote an hour with my flatmate at the time. I wrote an hour routine about living in Tokyo, thinking that wasn't enough. Um, so anyway, so I did this routine. It went very well. I got a load of gigs out of it. But I'll come back to that in a second. Will I? No, I'll do that bit now. So I got a load of gigs, and I thought, I don't want to write stand up stuff. I just can't. I'm not a writer. I'm not patient enough to sit there and write all this material. And it was probably the biggest chore of it all was refining my jokes and my observations. So somebody told me about improvised comedy, and they said there was these two American guys teaching it in Tokyo. So I met them, and I said, right, you teach me for free, and I will book us a load of gigs. So I booked us a load of gigs, and I used to do classes with them every week. And then I became it's amazing. If anyone who's watching has never done improv before, or improv, depending what country you're in, do it. Once you get over the mental watching yourself part, it's immense fun and it's so liberating on many, many, many levels. So I started to do that, but then I also thought at this stage that I didn't come to Tokyo to teach English and to work as a busboy. So I asked every single person who I met what they did and what their friends did. And somebody said, a friend of theirs teaches drama as a way of learning English for Japanese people and directs plays for Japanese people at a 2,000 seat theatre, 2,000 or whatever. So, so I said, okay. So I met this person, Jane Tara, who's now a good friend of mine, 30 plus years later. My wife's going to go and stay with her next week in Australia. I changed her CV from Cleopatra to Anthony. I said that I'd been studying in Australia, even though I'd never at that stage been to Australia. And I had to see, so I went to see the producers of the plays and who were also responsible for the teaching. And I just thought to myself, I've run a division for a company. It's the same thing. You give people the right vision, or not the right vision, you give them a vision and you just push them in the right direction. And then you make sure that they are all going in the same direction towards the same goal. And in Japan, that's really easier because they're all like that in any case. They all are very collective as a community, as a country. So it was easy to bring them together. So I'd say to Jane in the drama class, I'd say, Jane, what am I going to do next week? And she'd say, do an animal exercise. I'm like, okay. I'd go in and say, right, everybody, today we're doing an animal exercise. Everyone pick an animal, go. And half an hour later of me just wandering around the room, I say, right, stop. How was that? Oh, it was amazing. It was incredible. I had no idea why I was doing it, and they didn't either. But over a period of time, it built into actually understanding why I was doing this. And I was saying to her with the plays when I was directing them, we'd have a production meeting with all the tech people all there, and I'd be looking at this big map of the stage about how they wanted to do it. And I'd Jane, the back curtain on the stage, how far from the back wall is it? And she'd be going, doesn't matter. What are you talking about? It doesn't matter. It's just stupid. Okay, Jane, is stage left looking out or looking in? That's stage. I think it's looking out. What are you talking about? Okay. So I was really, really winging it, but nobody ever found out. And I did 4 plays directed, and I set up a theatre company for the women in the first group which is still going 30 years later, called Young Women's Theatre Group. No, Young Ladies Theatre, the YLTG, the Young Ladies Theatre Group. So all of these housewives who really were looking for something got a buzz out of this. In those days, I had long curly hair like Michael Bolton, big, long, mane of hair.
Are you saying they got a buzz out of you?
But they got a buzz out of out of the thing, out of it all. They hadn't met anyone like me before, really, over a protracted period of time. So they got the excitement. They were sucked into the wave of let's do something and let's have some fun and let's also they ended up hiring the theatre themselves as a private hire. And they invited everybody they knew, and they still going. Last day I heard of them was about 10 years ago. They were touring Boston in the States.
Wow.
I mean, they're probably a completely different group of ladies, but it was amazing.
May I ask you something? So as we all now see and know, we've got to know you now. You have a lot of energy. I'm not going to give you coffee. That's
I do
sure.
and I don't. I do and I don't have a lot of energy.
I know. I've met both. We've met both. How did Tokyo and Japan, because the rhythm there, as you said, it is so different. And now we know how you came there and you really were the buzz, as in a sense of it was beautiful for them. It motivated, it got them, you have this theater group, it is still running. I mean, congratulations. That is gorgeous. That is something really beautiful. How did it affect you and your sensitivity and your, the skill to observe? And,
okay. So
which is so important when you're acting and when you're coaching.
There's multiple levels to the question you've just asked. Well, I'll start with one, which was um, having a very curious mind and going, wow, what are they doing? Why do they do that? You know, that comes back to when I was traveling. I was in Malaysia. I just got to Penang, and I'd left a very comfortable time I had in Thailand with, you know, got some very good friends, and then got the backpack on and went out into the world. And I went to Penang, and it was a very uncomfortable start. I was staying in this place in this room with these two heroin addicts, and there was mosquitoes everywhere, and I was really really kind of very nervous, very scared in a way. But I fought my way through it and fought my way to do it, very determined. And I went out for dinner. I went out and I looked around the supermarkets. I went into the supermarkets. They had fish heads, shrink wrapped fish heads in the thing, and I was like, wow. And I started to see that life is very different here than it is in my experience to date. Then I was walking to look for something to eat, and all the neon lights stopped, and there was like a darkness beyond, and I could see apart from a couple of little bars or something. And I thought, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. So I went into this little corner bar place, and I ended up sitting there watching on American Gladiators with the sound off on a small TV with this must have been 80-plus-year-old Chinese guy with a beard that was just like a piece of hair that just stuck down. And I was just sitting there with him thinking, if I hadn't have gone past that neon, I would have missed this opportunity. I would have known what I know, and that's it. And I think that's probably I think humans or people I've met get very scared of moving beyond what they already know. And this is why I know lots of people talk about fear. I haven't studied fear, but, you know, I know that, you know, there's lots of cliches around it. But for me, it's, you know, what is that fear about? And that fear was this sort of breaking into something new. And because I'd already done it, because there's this sociologist called Maslow, who had this hierarchy of needs, and it was a triangle, and the bottom was just safety, you know, food and water, and then clothes and status and other things. And as you got to the top, there was the thing called self-actualization at the top of the pyramid. And my feeling of what self-actualization is, which I don't think is what his is, but it's having achieved something, done something in life, and gone through it and started it and finished it and achieved it, gives you the sense of strength and confidence to be able to do something that you've never done before again. So when I did firewalking, again, fell into that. Somebody gave me a ticket to do this thing, and you walk across 100 meters, which is a long way or maybe it was 100 yards, but it's still a long way of hot coals. And at the end of that 100, you get grounded and you write on a card, on this day I walked across hot coals, I can do anything. So I had a visual in my mind of I've done stuff. And I think in life, it's very easy to be very general. And I know lots of people, my brother included, don't celebrate things. They say, I'm not going to celebrate my birthday. I'm not going to celebrate your birthday. I'm not going to celebrate. I'm not going to mark it. And they sort of don't want to do that. But for me, I see it as milestones that you can look back on and say, I've got a sense of achievement. So if you're climbing Mount Everest, you stop at base camp, first base, second base, third base, fourth base camp, fifth base, fifth, whatever it's called. You do that, and that gives you the ability to keep going and to keep going, knowing that there's the next milestone is not too far away, and you'll be all right. So when you're floating around in this place of not knowing what the hell's going on, I have no idea where I am. Don't worry. Soon you will have an idea of what's going on, and soon you'll be able to settle for the night and enjoy a good night's sleep, so to speak.
That's beautiful.
Thank you for sharing with us this reverse engineered version, because that's, I mean, it makes sense on so many levels. First of all, on a very plain psychological, you're kind of teaching your nervous system that you can do hard things and stay, you know, survive them
Exactly.
and move forward.
That's really good.
And with a new one, you always kind of progressing. And it's a very right thing to do.
That's a really good point. Sorry, just on that, and I think the thing about that is that I didn't know that until I was already at the next place. It was not part of a plan to go back to the beginning. It was not part of a journey that I'd already kind of mapped out. It's me sitting here at almost 63 years old, being able to go back and go, that's what I was doing. Oh, I see that now. And I think it's having the confidence to know that when you're at that place, that when you get to that place, you're going to be able to reflect on it and learn from it, but not in a sort of dry, I'm going to go learn from this. It's like, oh, God, I get it, yeah. But it comes along a lot of the time later.
Yeah. It feels very intuitive with you, most of the things, that you have a very good inner compass that guides you and that you trust. Well, you have enough strength to trust it, which is obviously takes a lot of bravery.
It does, and the intuitiveness comes back to one of the questions you asked earlier, which was about becoming a coach through all of this. Is that for me, a good coach is listens with not with their ears so much, but with the whole package. It's about seeing, like at this, I can honestly say that for this conversation, I've not really looked very much at you two. Mainly, it's also lagging a lot on my side. I hope it comes out all right. But I'm not looking at you because I'm in story mode, and I'm sort of looking up, and I sort of glance at you here and there, and it just anchors me again. But I'm in story mode, and a coach. If I was in coaching mode, every single cell that I have is engaged, and if I do 6-7 sessions a day, that's a lot of hours, and it's me sitting there. But it's so invigorating. It's so engaging. It could be easy. I'm exhausted listening to all these people's stories. It would be very easy, but if I haven't thought about it like this, but I'm like looking at it and I'm feeding off something, and it's giving me something. It's not taking something away. So with the thing about being a coach is that if you can see someone and really see whether they're being honest to themselves or not, and then you kind of get in and say, she's not being honest to herself. What is that? I just saw you, something happened in your head. What was that? And they say, well, I was just thinking, no, come on, what was it? And they'll say something, and then it takes you into this other unexplored land. And about, again, coaching must be the same as traveling, because it's brand new every day. Unless the client, and if the client just came back to me and said, what's happened? Nothing. What do you want to talk about? Nothing. What are we good? Nothing. And if at the end of that hour it's just basically the same as it was last time, we would part ways. Either I would say, this, we're not going to carry on working together because there's no need, or there's no point. Or they would say, they would feel that, why am I giving my money to this person? So it has to be new, etc. And that's when it comes to acting as well. It's the same scene with the same words and looking at the same person, but it has to be at least slightly different every time. When I started acting, and if we have ever got enough time, because I'm talking so much, I come back to how I started actually acting, because that's another interesting story about throwing myself in, and then I, quite a successful career in 3 different countries. Successful for me. When I first started doing screen acting, I thought I was amazing because I could just do exactly the same thing every time. I thought they're gonna love me because I'm just doing exactly the same thing. I'm doing exactly the same thing. I'm doing exactly. Then I helped edit a short film that I made, and I realized that's not what they want. They want to see a different thought. They want to be able to take, that one fits with this narrative that we've got, this arc that we've got, that one. They don't want 7 of the same versions. They also don't want, at an audition, 7 of the same person. They don't, they bring 7 brunettes of a certain age in, but they're absolutely going to want something. They don't want you to all be the same. So when you go into an audition casting room and everyone looks different than you, that's actually good. And that takes a lot to be able to get to that point where you say, oh, it's good that I don't look like the other person. The jobs that I've got of ones where I've sat and looked at everybody thinking he'd be a much, oh God, it's for a priest. He looks like a priest, that guy. And then I get the job as the priest. And it's like, how did that come about?
You look like a
I
priest.
look like a priest. I also look like, no, never mind. I was about to go through all the other, all the nasty characters I've played. Yeah. I look like a priest.
I pointed out two things. First, I really want you to go back into your acting journey because it's fascinating. And the second thing you said, it was kind of in passé. You said, successful to me anyway. So that was very interesting. So how do you define success in your own
Success
terms?
is tying your shoelaces up when you're drunk. Success is getting the last bus home. These are ones, I know when I get the tube, the metro, subway, underground in London, and the doors are just about to close, and I run and I just get in, and I look at everybody, and they all looking at me, and especially if,
You're like,
and it's like, success, but success builds, success, one bit of success builds on another, and you can't sit there. I can't sit there for a month basking on how I got into that tube, how I got those tube doors before they closed. I can't do that, but I can take it and add it to the structure that is me. Just those particular cells in my brain had a success, and I think that is very, very common and easy for us as humans, I think generally, but again, as Brits, for those of you British ones, I think it's different for Americans in a lot of ways, but because they're much more on the front foot. But I think some Scandinavians definitely, and I think the colder countries where people are sort of much more restrained, as opposed to the warmer countries where everyone's much more gregarious.
mm-hmm.
I think that it's easy for us to talk about things we're not good at. It's easy. Oh no, it's just like at the beginning we said, how are you today? Not too bad, thank you. It's easy for us to say that rather than I'm very good. And it comes back to that. And so success to me is not something I sit there and go, I'm successful. Because that, again, to me still sounds a bit arrogant. I'm successful. Because it also means, if I say that to somebody, I can say it to myself. But if I say that to you or anybody who's watching this, they might easily think, God, he's arrogant, isn't he? He's successful. Let me see his CV. I've never heard of any of the stuff he's been in. He doesn't seem very successful to me. But I'm not talking about how you hear it. I'm talking about how I feel it. And then in my experience of life is that if you feel it, so do other people. I've met a lot of people who don't like me when they meet me. A lot. And the fact is that I'll walk into the room and I'll walk in there with a certain amount of confidence and joie de vivre and stuff like that. And because they're not because they don't need that particular person in their life at that moment, they look at me and they go, oh God, he's a bit arrogant, he's a bit this. And I've had that a lot. And I've had people becoming aggressive with me as a result. But I know it's not me. I don't want to be someone else. I'm very much me and enjoying my life, and I think that's essential. What's the point? Otherwise, if I'm going to be sort of for the whole time, and they, people say, oh, it's me, I'm miserable, and that's the way it is. Oh, I mean, that's a bit sad, It's try not to be miserable, and then compare it and see which one you prefer. So success is that's the success bit to me. But getting into the acting thing was the same as getting into stand-up comedy. I was in Tokyo. A couple of things. One, I went to somebody told me there was an audition for a commercial, and I didn't know any about this stuff. And I went along to my first ever audition, and and they were looking for. In fact, I told this story in the class yesterday. They're looking for a foreigner, a non-Japanese, speaking in a foreign language passionately to the screen. And okay, I was in the queue, and I hadn't prepared at all. I got there, and I was there. There was all these foreign people there: Germans, Russians, Africans. okay, I'm going to do Italian. I'm going to be an Italian. I don't speak Italian. I was going to go, mozzarella, spaghetti, pasta. I was going to just do all those things. But there was an Israeli guy in front of me, and I grew up as a Jew, and I was the youngest son in my family, the youngest child in my family, and the youngest child at Passover has a prayer that he says every single year, and I knew it pretty much by heart because I said it every single year. And I'd be like a little kid, and everyone would be, "Oh, well done!" So I thought I'm going to do that. So for those of you who understand any Hebrew, it was like Manishtana Laila Zemis Kol Halelot, which, and I went through the whole thing. And what it is why is this night different than all other nights? Because this is the night that the angel of the Lord came over all the houses and just smote the Egyptians and saved the Jews, kind of thing. And that's what I was saying, but the Japanese people had no idea what I was doing. So I got the job. And the Israeli guy got the job as well. So both of us ended up doing it together. And he wrote a little script, and we just, so much so that I got a phone call about 3 or 4 months later after it had been released from the Haaretz, which is an Israeli newspaper, interviewing me 7 in the morning, interviewing me about, and they wrote this article about famous Israeli actor Daniel Dresner. And I'd never been in anything. It just showed me at that time how people change your story as well. So anyway, so I got a commercial for Kirin, which is one of the biggest beverage companies in the world. It was the other foreigner who was doing a commercial at the same time for Kirin was Harrison Ford. So I was walking down the street near where I lived, and people, because I was on TV for months every day, and with a very famous Japanese guy who I didn't know. I didn't know he was famous, so I wasn't sucking up to him on the set. I was just, hey, how you doing, and whatever. Um, so then there was a couple of expat theatre companies in Tokyo, and so I went to see one, the funkier one, it's called the Hysteric Theatre Company, and I went with a friend of mine, who was the artistic director, not the art, she was the art director, so she helped do the stage sets for this company. I went to see Pinter's Hot House, and I was watching this little black box theatre. I want to do that. That looks great. I want to do that. So she said, well, they're auditioning next week for A Woman in Mind, Alan Ayckbourn play, which incidentally I'm going to see in the West End in a couple of weeks. Whole circle completely turned. I went along, didn't tell them I'd never been in anything. I got one of the, they're all lead roles in these plays. They've all got, so I got a big meaty part. Nobody knew I'd been in anything. It got reviewed by we got reviewed by the press and stuff, and the Yomiuri Shimbun newspaper said some of the actors wandering around aimlessly on stage, and I'm absolutely certain that was me. Because I had no idea what I was doing, but I delivered it very enthusiastically. Then I got another part, which again came up as a Facebook reminder to yesterday with the people who I did it with 30 plus years ago. Sister Mary Ignatius explains it all to you or for you by Christopher Durang, and I played this guy from Brooklyn, Aloysius Benham, and my hair was all tied back, and I was like, this guy, Aloysius Benham, and I played this guy, and he was very insecure and stuff like this. I didn't know, I'd never done an accent before. I just did what I thought a Brooklyn accent was, and it was great. I had a great time until somebody came off and somebody said, watch out for the accent, it slips from time to time, and all of a sudden I was like, oh. So before knowing I was supposed to do an accent in a certain way, and I was supposed to be this, I was fine. But then she pointed it out. But what I did was I misplaced my angst there. I thought I disliked her as a result because of the bad news until after I'd done the run. And then I thought about it. So then, I was doing all this stuff, and I thought I should train, I should study. I did loads of stuff in Tokyo, and then the TV, film, everything. And thought I should really study. So the producers of the plays knew Anna Strasberg, who's Lee Strasberg, the founder of the Method, after Stanislavski, blah blah blah. I never heard of him, never heard of her. So when I went to New York, I met other people. I met Danny Glover, a very famous actor. I met him in this bar. I was working in this very funky cafe at that time because it was lots of fun. And Danny Glover came in. I said, "Oh, I'm going to think of go to drama school. Where did you go?" He said, "I went to the San Francisco Conservatory, but it doesn't matter where you go; it's what you take from it." And so I thought, "Okay, good advice." So I went to meet Anna Strasberg's sister in New York, Victoria Crane, who's now a good friend of mine, and she said, "Basically, you're in." And I just had to write a check really, and then I stayed in New York for 6 years as an actor. I studied in Strasbourg quite a while. Started to get some technique, which is very important, and I took notes in all the classes. So now when I started teaching here, I read all of the notes from different teachers, so I had different perspectives, and I have a series of about 70 exercises now, starting a very basic Stanislavski breakfast drink exercise, for those of you who know it, all that to very complex, using the music and art and stuff like that to emotionally impact you. So I've got a series of must be 70 plus exercises, which I started getting from Strasbourg. But I didn't know about method, didn't know about Lee Strasberg, so I fell into it. I was gonna very, very good piece of advice. Actually, I went to stay with a friend of mine in New York, and I looking for a place to live, and I saw 250 different places, whether it was just to phone them or to go and visit them. But I had 250 was the number that I went to get myself a place. I ended up with the most amazing loft type, massive place that I shared with this guy. Um, and it was very, very, very cheap, very cheap. It was in an area that was just about to turn from being a heroin area to the East Village in New York, for multi-million dollar apartments when I left. And the guy, I moved in with this guy. He was a very, very lovely, very tall gay guy, great eye for design. And he was a maitre d' at a great restaurant. And I said, "Can you get me a job as a waiter?" And he said, "You've got savings, haven't you?" So what are they for? I said, "For a rainy day." He said, "It's raining."
It's raining.
And it was okay, it's raining. So I didn't have any work. I had enough savings that I gathered from. I always had the money, if you don't mind me swearing. I always had enough money, what I used to call fuck up money. So if I'd fucked up, I had enough money to unfuck myself, to give myself enough time to get a job and to refill my reservoir, my financial reservoir. So I had enough money to just devote my time to Strasbourg studies. So I'd never read a play before, really, or hardly ever. I'd never ever read a film script. And I thought I was so far behind the curve. I thought I was so old, and all these, I thought I was all these things that I come across all the time now in my coaching, and um, and and I realized in a way that everybody else is floundering around just like me. They just have different things they're floundering around about. They're just worried about other things. Danny said something really the other day: different level, different devil. So it doesn't matter where you are. Everyone's, "Oh, I really want to be there."
I think that's the beauty of like what you're telling us. First of all, I loved how you say even if people, even if you make them aggressive, like towards you because you're being you, you said I'm gonna be
Yeah,
me,
that
and
was
that
not
is
easy.
bravery. That is
But
being brave. That is
it's
not
not big.
easy,
I
and I
don't think so.
really
Sorry to
think
interrupt.
it's
I don't think
amazing.
it's being brave. I'm not. I don't know what being brave is actually, because for me there was a moment in my life when I got it. When I thought to myself, I remember exactly what that moment is, and it was like some girl had said to me in Thailand, "Be yourself, man." And then there's this moment came where it was really, really in my head. Be yourself. What does she mean, be yourself? And I just had this huge journey, and I came back to be yourself. And then I sort of went out, and I had a big red beard, and not knowing I had red hair. I had curly hair, not knowing I had curly hair, because I'd always had a short hair at those stages. And I shaved off the beard, thinking that this is my personality, this crazy English guy with the beard. And I walked out to where I was, and nobody even noticed. And it was not about the beard. It was about the way out. It was
True.
about who I felt I was. And it was about standing up straight and not shrinking into a corner. Because that's, some people want to shrink into a corner, fine. But not me. I was the youngest child, so I was going to be more precocious, probably possibly than the oldest child or the middle child, or whatever.
Yeah. But I love how you talked about it before when you're coaching, particularly women, and they have, family. Tell us about that. Because I think everything you have experienced, the way you see life, the way you have, as you said, the line, just like, it wasn't like a straight line. It wasn't decided. It wasn't like, I'm going to do this and this and this. That wasn't what's happening. But how do you use that? Because it was beautiful what you said when you were coaching. I think you were coaching a woman that is now a mother
Yeah.
and is an actor, and who was saying like, well, that means I have to wait
Yeah.
until the kid is this old. Da da da. Please tell
Okay.
us about that.
An expression that came to my head while you were saying that was, "You're a long time dead." So what that means to me is you're living now. You've kind of got to, and I think the difficulty for mums, however old the kids are, the difficulty is that the nature of being a mother in nature is that you give, as mammals, is that you nurture. That your job is to give, to carry the child, usually, or if it's IVF, whatever, that's a different part of the story. But you give birth in a different way if it's IVF, and you give birth in a different way if it's adoption. But you carrying this child or these things for a while, and then your job is to feed them, is to grow them, and then what happens in society is the man goes and does his thing generally, and the woman's there and maternity leave, and so she doesn't have to go back. And then there's the thing about this maternity leave is about to stop. So what am I going to do then? Do I get somebody to come in and look at, to look at, and it's important that the mother has that, hugely important that the mother has that connection with the child. What happens then is that what happened with this particular actress was, I've known her a long time before she was even with her husband, and I'd not seen her over a course of maybe 4 years, 3 or 4 years before the pandemic. And she came, said, out of the blue, I've got an agent, want to do more acting, but I'm not sure. I've got the kids. I'm thinking I'm going to wait. I don't know whether I want coaching or not. I'm not sure. So my immediate thought was thinking on TV of the countless women on adverts who've got babies. That was my first thought. And the second thought for her was that I have worked with a lot of older ladies who come to me after their kids have left home, and they're like, now I'm ready to start doing what I want to do again. And I just thought, what a shame. When I was looking at her, I thought, what a shame that if she's an extremely talented actress. I mean, she's like extremely good. What a shame it would be if she wasn't satisfying that part of herself until her kids were old enough to leave home. Why shouldn't she? Why should her husband be allowed to be fulfilled and have his life, but she's not allowed to have hers? So in a way, it's about allowed to. Who's saying allowed to? In her case, nobody. It was her. Her husband is very supportive. He said, with what my wife said to me when we got kids, was, "We'll make it work." Um, so so what we worked on was her making it work. So she's now working all the time. She did a week in Hungary in a 6-star hotel or something, for an Amazon commercial where she didn't even shoot it. Somebody else did the main thing. She was just backup. She's been in a few films. She's done a play, and she's made it work. And she's now being herself. So coming back to that, she's now building on her success and listening to her, all the limiting beliefs, because, the limiting beliefs, imposter syndrome, which was a survey in the 70s, or some work in the 70s about women, top 70% of women or something, were saying that they thought they were imposters, they were going to get found out, they weren't good enough, they're only getting there because of this, they weren't there. And so that imposter syndrome thing then moved on to men as well. But at the time, it was about women. And I heard all of her, and I've had this with multiple clients, saying, but I'm too old, I'm too small, I'm too tall, I'm too ugly, I'm too pretty, I have this, I have that, and this and that, all of the negative stuff, which was really easy. All she needed was why? I don't get it. Why not? You've got a support network. Use the support network. I don't know whether that's the answer, whether that answers the question you asked us.
Yeah, no, beautiful. And that's important. And it's so important that you're saying that and stating that the allowance, she needed to give it to herself.
It's really hard, we're all in different circumstances. Some people are single mums, from low income, very low income. Some people are, very rich ladies with, a husband and nannies and maids and stuff, but different level. And it takes a lot more determination for the person with the lower on the low end of this particular scale. It takes a lot more determination, but that actually gives that there's more power in that as well. And you look on television, there's a lot of roles for people with young women struggling. The script is about this woman who's struggling through whatever. Even if they're not the main character, they're still there's still roles for them. And then people say, oh, well, there's not very many, there's not as many as there are for men. Well, so what? We're not talking about how many there are for men. We're talking about, if there's 20 roles for women, well, be one of those 20. But you're going to be more likely to be one of those 20 if you have the right attitude than if you don't have the right attitude. Work on the things you can work on. Satisfied, have a fulfilling life. My mum said to me a long time ago, to go around the dinner table with our various partners, said, when was the happiest part of your life, happiest time in your life? Oh, when I was traveling, my sister said, my brother said here, and I was like, well, where? When I was at university or whatever, because it was a long time ago. And she said, wrong. If the answer's not today, then do something about it. And that's a big comment, but it's not that easy to adjust. But essentially, there's a point. If we're stuck, make yourselves unstuck. If you can start, if you don't make something unstuck immediately, you sort of try. You have to wrestle it loose a bit by bit. If you're with a partner who's abusive towards you, and you think you're going to spend the next 20, 30 years of your life being gaslit, beaten up, and disrespected, it's not easy to say leave and go somewhere else. It's impossible to do that. But there is a way. There's one step. The Confucius thing on a 25,000 kilometer march. The most difficult step is the first. So, deciding that you have to do something, and then doing another thing, and then another thing. And in a way, what I've learned is I don't have a master plan, but I know if I keep doing another thing and keep doing another thing, and one day, if we had another 4 hours, I'd tell you how my book came about, because that's another interesting story. I've written a book that's published by Bloomsbury. It's sold over 1,000 copies. And before I said I'm not a writer, but I'm not. But I've got something to say. And I just fell into writing that book once I became a coach, because I didn't know what to do next.
One step at a time. Yeah. Oh, that's been lovely. Thank you so much. What a beautiful conversation, and what a beautiful way to begin this morning.
And likewise, you're both lovely and really easy to talk to, and I'm sure I'd have done it without the caffeine as well. So.
Oh, we're more than sure, and not only that, where can we get your lovely book?
Well, thank
listeners?
You. So it's called A Life Coaching Approach to Screen Acting. Don't know whether we can see the life coaching of this backwards, in any case, mirrored. And it's by me, Daniel Dresner. And it's published by Bloomsbury Methuen. And it's
beautiful, and we will have the links.
Yeah, you can get it from Amazon, you can get it from eBay, you can get it from Bloomsbury's website. They have discounts. If you get it from me, if you get in touch with me, I'm sure you can find me. If you get in touch with me, I can send you a signed copy. I'll pay, pay for postage and packaging, but I'll give you a discount as well, so you can make that. So get in touch and I can send you a signed copy.
And how best to get in touch? I mean, as I said, we're going to have all these, you gorgeous souls that are listening and watching us.
Yeah,
we'll
have a coaching website, DanielDresner.com, and on there's a contact email address, and I think there's a contact phone number as well. I'm in the UK. So I've got DanielDresner.com is a good one. Also, ActorsCoachingInternational.com. But I'm on Instagram, Daniel Dresner Coaching on Instagram. If you're an actor, Daniel Dresner Coaching on Facebook. That's another interesting story how that came about. That's a pandemic story, and started with no actors or 13 actors, and now there's 1,300 on there doing classes all through the pandemic. And it's just amazing. It's just amazing how that works. Again, do it rather than sit around and not do it. Anyway, that's another story for another time. So if you want to find me, you can find me. I don't make it hard. So, that.
Thank you.
If you're a listener, do find.
Thank you. This has
Daniel.
been amazing.
Thank you, ladies.
So much.
See you, everyone. Bye. Thanks for listening if you got to the end.